on, so we got this fan going.
Okay. Just surprise me. And so we're back to normal.
So we are back.
Yeah.
How about us?
Yeah, so Thursday, I got some weird sound in here. I don't know what's going on.
No.
Sorry, everybody online.
Oh, is it the phasing from the ends?
I don't know. Maybe.
Sounds like it's...
Anyways, yeah, we got some weird noise going on in here. So on Thursday, I flew to Phoenix.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Just so you know, it's warmer in Phoenix than it is in Las Vegas.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, which is normally the case, but.
Oh, wow.
So it was
Yeah.
hot. But we have, Community Lutheran Church is a part of a larger Lutheran church. And not only are we part of a national church, but we're also a part of a smaller area, which we call a synod, which is the Greek word for gathering. So it's St. George, Utah, all in southern Nevada, and all of Arizona.
Yep.
Once a year, we have a gathering of all the Lutheran churches, and we get together and we do the business of this region or area, synod, right? Mm-hmm. And so flew down, met with our synod council, like our church council, reported on all the goings on at the churchwide level, since I sit on the national church council. And then on Friday and Saturday, we had meetings. And one of the things we did is it was an election year because every 6 years, like a senator, the bishop comes up for election. It's not bishop for life,
Right.
which is different than, let's say, the Episcopal Church or the Roman Catholic Church. Once you're a bishop, you're always a bishop. With us, it's a term. And then
Yeah,
if
you serve. You serve.
and
as
then
bishop,
and then once you're done being bishop, you no longer carry that title.
How about that?
You go back to being pastor.
Okay.
And so, first thing in the morning on Friday, we have our first, what they call ecclesiastical, which is a big fancy word for church. We have an ecclesiastical ballot to elect a bishop. And believe it or not, our bishop was reelected on the first ballot with 75% of the votes, which is what you needed to be reelected.
75%. And if it wouldn't be 75%, you would go to another ballot and they would continue the process.
That's right.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we got through that, and then we heard reporting on all the ministries and things happening in and around the synod on Friday and Saturday, and then I flew back home here Saturday at 5 o'clock. Now, one of the fun things that happened was at the airport on Saturday, I ran into a longtime friend from Illinois.
I saw you post a picture.
Yes.
Yes.
So I've known Bob Lindsay for about 20 years. And Bob is a high school teacher, and he was leading he does a senior trip every year in the Southwest doing national parks and so on. So he was like at Zion, and he was at Bryce, and they were at the Grand Canyon, and they were in Sedona, and they did some kayaking on the Colorado River. And so
Wow, my
they end
goodness.
up in Phoenix at the end of the trip to fly home. Well, it just so happened his plane was leaving about an hour after ours. And so we were in the airport at the same time, and we met up for half an hour.
Well, how about that?
It's not very often that you meet up with somebody in the airport who, when you both don't live in the same town, right?
Right.
You know, so
Right.
so that was a lot of fun doing that, and means I missed Saturday night service, right? But got back in time.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it makes for a busy weekend when we have those Synod gatherings. and then
Plus, plus Vacation Bible School.
plus Vacation Bible School
Yeah.
back here.
Right.
And so we had a lot going on here in the church.
So, what
here in
was the
Vegas, too.
best thing that happened at Vacation Bible School?
You know what? The best thing would clearly be just the numbers being up so much
Yeah.
from where they were in previous
Right.
years. I mean, it was coming out of the pandemic, and you never know how
No,
things
right,
are going to
right, exactly.
change moving forward
Yep,
after
yep.
the pandemic. And this had been one area that we were just, what is the new normal? What does that look like? And you know, we hadn't had numbers the way we wanted the past
Few
couple
years,
of years.
yeah.
And then we had a jump this year.
Yeah.
And so that was really nice to see.
That is really great.
It yeah, we could always love to see more. I don't know where we would put all of them when they go
Right.
to their stations.
Right.
But we would always love to see more. But it was a good deal.
So we were, and so let me translate this for you. We reached even more kids to share Jesus' love with them.
That's it.
I mean, that you boil it down is why do we want bigger numbers? Not because we want to brag about bigger numbers. It's because we know that we'll have a greater impact on kids in Las Vegas and Henderson.
It does, and
Yeah.
and you see that from, because I mean it's kind of hard to. People have asked me, you know, a little bit like where are the kids coming from, and I would say, you know, it's very roughly. You can't really say,
Yeah.
but you know, a third are probably our core
Group.
kids
Yep.
who are
Kids we
they're-
know.
They're coming to everything.
Yeah,
right?
we
They're
know
the
those
core
kids. Yeah.
A third are probably kids who are. This is their church, but we don't see them all that often.
Yeah.
But they're here for this, and they were here
Yep.
every day for this. And then another third were just people
New.
brand new.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it really was kind of evenly divided out there.
Yeah.
And so just kind of cool to see.
It is. It is. Anytime you get an opportunity to make an impact in kids' lives, you want to do that because you're planting seeds that you don't know maybe how they'll germinate one
Yeah.
day. But we're planting the seeds, and we're going to take every opportunity to do that, right?
Yep.
So that's really great. So, and we have our air conditioning mostly resolved. It's warm in the studio today, but most everywhere else
Most other rooms are
pretty
doing all
good.
right. Yeah.
So we're good for tomorrow for Bible study.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And youth group and all that.
Yes,
so that's
and Linda
good.
will be all right too.
Yeah, we
That
won't-
was the
we won't kill
concern
her in
there,
the
too.
kitchen, right?
Yeah.
And the other thing
Hopefully.
the other thing is tomorrow is a national holiday. We are open tomorrow, but it is a national holiday, and it is a holiday called Juneteenth. And you might go, well, I'm not sure what that is. So in 1863, President Lincoln, his executive order of the Emancipation Proclamation went into effect, which was the emancipation of anybody who was owned by another human being, slaves. And when that happened, clearly, in some ways, it was symbolic in the sense of during the Civil War, it's not as if all the slaves of the Confederacy, the South, just said, oh, well, we better release our slaves because we were at war over that very thing. But how it got its name is as the Union Army made an advance into Galveston Harbor in Texas. When they arrived 2 years later, June 19th, 1865, when they arrived in Galveston Bay, the Union Army announced to those in Galveston and the surrounding areas that the Emancipation Proclamation was put into effect 2 years earlier. 250,000 enslaved people of color were freed and they finally knew they were freed. And so informally, for the last 100 plus years, 150 years, folks understood Juneteenth as that day that those slaves in Texas finally were emancipated, even though by executive order they were already freed 2.5 years earlier. And so Juneteenth was always something that had been known, certainly among the black community in the South, but less known and less talked about in the northern states, and probably even less so by white people, right? So Juneteenth marks a specific day on the calendar for those who were enslaved in Texas, but it also represents the larger story of emancipation, freedom for those who were slaves. And I think that's an important hallmark within American history to remember that there came a day when President Lincoln and many said no more slavery in this nation.
Yeah.
And so tomorrow is that day. So because it's now a federal holiday, banks are closed and post office is closed and so on and so forth. And I was just talking to our administrator saying, oh yeah, we need to put that on our calendar as well, because we follow, in terms of days off, we normally follow the federal holiday calendar. And most of those are Monday holidays,
Right.
except for 4th of July that floats and Christmas that floats. But we will make sure we put that on our calendar for next year as once again a sign of remembering it, a very important day, and the fact that we have a checkered past in our nation, thinking about race and race relations and equality, and we're still on that journey because we haven't figured it out yet. Yeah. And so I think Juneteenth is a good day for us to remember, in a lot of ways, for us to, at least people who are white, myself, to think about the fact that, okay, what does it mean to say in the Pledge of Allegiance, with liberty and justice for all?
It's so important. And then it really is one where it lifts up, really shows the importance of the bringing of the good news. I mean, they
That's
really
right.
received that, and how that brought
Freedom.
then.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that, just an incredible, real story of that tangible good news.
That tangible good news that changed so many lives of people who were, brought here against their will or born into a nation in slavery too, as a matter of fact. So I think it's an important day to stop and reflect. And since we're not in a broadcast tomorrow, we do have Bible study tomorrow night. Figured we'd just take a moment right now to mention Juneteenth and the importance of that holiday. And because it's a newer thing on our federal holiday calendar, I think it's good to go back and mention where does that come from and why is that important for us.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So this past weekend, we had started a new sermon series, KCLC Radio.
Yes, we did. Kicked it right off.
And as you know, if you've been with us for the last 4 years, we've done this in the summer, and we brought it back with a whole bunch of new songs this year. And we started, and we're going to go back and visit the song that we heard this weekend.
Yes, indeed.
And so with that, let's take a listen.
Fairly soon, the time will tell. You're telling me the things you're gonna do for me. Oh, I ain't blind and I don't like what I think I see. We're taking it to the street. No more need for running. Oh, no, no. Take this message to my brother. You will find him everywhere. Wherever people live together. Tired in poverty's despair. Oh, you're telling me the things you're gonna do for me. No, no, no. I said I ain't blind and I don't like what I think I see. We're taking it to the street. No more need for running. Oh yeah. We're taking it. No more need for hiding. Oh, oh. Taking it to the street. Whoa, Lord, yeah. Taking it to the streets. Oh, I said you're telling me the things you're gonna do for me. Oh, no, no. Oh, I ain't blind and I don't like what I think I see. We're taking it to the street. No more need for running. Taking it to the street. We're taking it. Oh, we ain't hiding it. We're taking it to the street. Yeah. Oh, all right.
That's applause worthy right there, right?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's great.
So-
that was really good.
First of all, so well done, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so well done that I wanted to hear it again.
Yeah,
So-
we heard it a few times.
Yes, we did.
but
We did.
But it was great, and I loved it.
Yep. So you heard a little bit. Doobie Brothers, 1976. You mentioned stagflation, stagnant economy.
Right in the middle of that.
Right in the middle of that. It was, some of you know this, bicentennial year. It was and I know you have vague memories of 1976.
Yeah, it was a rough year for me.
So the whole year of 1976 was nationally, I mean, it just happened. It was all themed around our 200th anniversary as a nation. I mean, even from the beginning of the year, it wasn't just on July 4th. That whole year was marked by remembering our 200th anniversary. And it just seemed like, in commercials, in magazines, on billboards, you just kept seeing this 1776 to 1976. Philip, you remember some of that? It just seemed like it was everywhere. It's just like you couldn't not know it was our anniversary. And one of the things that we joked about was that was the year they made a commemorative quarter that they put into circulation with a patriot on the backside of the quarter. Now, since then, there's been state quarters and all sorts of different minted quarters with different things on it. But up to that point, it was always been a standard issue, penny, nickel, dime, quarter, so on. And so when there was a special quarter made for that year, many of us saved as many of those bicentennial quarters that we could get our hands on because they were unique and not like, oh, collect the states or this or that, right?
Yeah.
And in 1976 was also an election year that year. And
Yes, it was.
and it was between Gerald Ford, who inherited the administration of Richard Nixon, yeah, who stepped down for the things he did, was a part of in Watergate. Jimmy Carter won that election that year in November. And I mean, there was a lot of things going on. And certainly, I think to myself, like, oh, okay, that line, you telling me things that you're going to do for me, I ain't blind, and I don't like what I think I see. And you put that within the context of 1976 of an election year. And, oh, guess what? We're in an election year this year.
Yeah.
And you hear promises.
Everybody loves to make promises.
Everybody likes to make
Yes,
promises.
Yes.
And I like what Michael McDonald wrote the song of the Doobie Brothers. It's also his first, their first single in which he sings lead in that. And certainly you could see him referencing empty promises of politicians in this, right?
Yeah.
And you said you mentioned it at one of the services that he had a conversation with his sister or was visiting his sister. What was that again?
He had a conversation with his the song came out. I mean, there wasn't a lot on the
Right.
background to this. Some of them they have a lot of background,
and some you have
And
nothing.
there was very very little, but it was stated that he had a conversation with his sister, and it just kind of opened his eyes to some of the poverty in the world,
Yep.
and out of that
Yep.
came this song.
And you see that in this song, you hear this taking it to the streets, no more running, as if to say no more like hiding from it, no more pretending it's not there. Some of the social ills.
Yeah, we're standing up.
We're
for it.
standing up for it. And, one of the things that, I'm always really clear on, I actually had a conversation with one of our members on Sunday, is I reminded them, I was like, when you think about taking it to the streets, we have to take it into context of our faith when Jesus said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called the children of God." So a peacemaker will often stand in the middle and take fire from both sides, right? And I think, but that's the calling, is the peacemakers in the middle. And when people have drawn lines on sides, neither side likes you because you're saying, now we need to come together and figure this out. Come to the table. Because nothing gets solved by, sniping at each other from this side or that side.
Yeah, and unfortunately, peace does often take a sacrifice from both sides, or certainly one side. I mean, somebody's got to
give a little.
Yeah, and how are they going to see that? And
Yep.
sometimes it takes taking it to the streets to that,
Yeah.
open people's eyes. But it does take. What does it mean to come to that place?
Yep. And have that
And
conversation.
Who's going to be that honest voice of truth
Yep.
in the midst of it, regardless of if everybody's then angry with you?
Yeah, that's right. But that's how it works, is coming into the middle ground, and both sides hate that. And it does take everybody giving a little bit to forge a new direction, right?
Yeah.
But I like the tune of this. I mean, the lyrics are great, but the tune itself is also just a really great tune. And when I was thinking about some of the themes in this song, one of the places I went was with 2 Timothy. So this is Paul writing to Timothy, who's his protege in a lot of ways. And Paul is like trying to build Timothy up because Paul knows, like, there's going to come a time when I'm not around and I need somebody to take my place. And he's talking about a situation like this, that you're telling me things you're going to do for me, but I ain't blind and I don't like what I think I see. So Paul's writing to Timothy, talking about that kind of feel, religiously speaking. So listen to this. Paul writes, he says, "For a time will come when people will not put up with sound doctrine. Instead, to suit their own desires, they will gather around a great number of teachers to say what their itching ears want to hear." How about that?
Wow.
Now, don't tell me that there are people in this world even today that walk away and claim Christ as their Savior, but then they turn to folks outside the church to only hear what they want to hear. And once again, it's an election year, and I see that happen all the time. It's like,
Politicians are great at that.
Yep.
They only want to tell you exactly what you want to hear, not that.
That's right.
Not that peacemaker role of trying to like how everybody can sacrifice.
That's
or how,
exactly
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people who turn to a great number of teachers so that they can hear what their itching ears want to hear. It happens today, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just going to tell you, I'm an equal opportunity offender because your Savior don't come from Washington. So I don't care what side it is, people do it, right? It's both and.
Right.
They will turn their ears away from the truth and turn aside to myths. He says, but you keep your head in all situations. Endure hardship. Do the work of the evangelist. That means keep talking about Jesus. Just keep talking about Jesus. Discharge all the duties of your ministry. So I'm just drawn to that passage, not just because of the song, but I'm like, oh my gosh. Paul's like, yeah, there'll come a day when, and I'm like, well, I feel like sometimes that day's here, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm not, don't read into I'm predicting the end of the world. I'm just saying that time has come where people are looking for anything that they already agree with, as opposed to keeping my head down and looking to Jesus for all things, right? And so, I see that in that line, tell me things you're going to do for me, but I ain't blind and I don't like what I think I see. And so I really resonate with the fact that people promise the world and almost always they deliver almost nothing.
Yep. If you're looking for a Messiah in anybody other than Jesus, you might be
Disappointed. Yeah. Down the road. Exactly. Might be. He didn't say definitively, but he said might be. Just
give it a shot.
give it a shot, see what
happens.
happens.
We always, oh, that person looks pretty
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
Yeah. And then they're human too, right?
Turns out.
It turns out. They're all human in the end. And the difference between, in quotes, us and those folks is we're willing to admit that we're human because we're real people and we don't always get things right, And I think that's a part of being authentic is saying, we're going to do our best, but we also are willing to recognize we don't always get it right too, right?
For sure.
So now at the end of Paul's letter to the Corinthians, he writes, he's closing out, so he's kind of giving his final instructions. And I pulled from the translation The Message in chapter 16, which is the last chapter of Corinthians, 1 Corinthians. And this one is a good encouragement for us. Like if I was going to cheer someone on to not give in, not to throw in the towel, these are the words that I would want to commend to somebody who's struggling and hasn't figured it out, but wants the right things.
Which is kind of a good description of that church in Corinth.
Yeah,
too.
it really is, because they were struggling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so Paul wanted to give them this message of encouragement from 1 Corinthians chapter 16. Keep your eyes open. Hold tight to your convictions. Give it all you've got. Be resolute and love without stopping.
So here's the deal. Unless you can do the last one of those, the ones that come before it mean nothing. If you can't love without stopping, if you can't have unconditional love for humanity, then the rest of it falls apart. If you're going to hold your convictions because they're telling you to hate somebody or hate a group of people or a certain people who have chosen this or that, then you're off mark. It's hard to give it all you got if you're not full of love and you're just full of spite.
Yeah.
To be resolute also means to have a little bit of love in your life to keep you moving forward, right?
Forward. Yes.
But I love this. Keep your eyes open and hold tight to your convictions. Give it all you got. Be resolute and never stop loving. I love that. So I think that's good encouragement for us. So when you think about, because you could certainly misinterpret a song like this, especially in a church setting, is like, we're calling for kind of mass rallies and disrupting traffic and take it to the streets and shut everything down. And I think it would be easy to misinterpret that song from a Christian point of view, that that's what the call is. But instead, look at it metaphorically of, you got to call it out lovingly and be clear about who you are, and you don't need to run in fear.
Yeah.
But we're certainly not calling for mass protests or violence or of any number of issues that would be important to talk about. But we're also saying don't avoid it either.
Yeah, you've got to be honest with the truth. Get that.
the truth.
Stand up for that.
And the truth as it relates to the kingdom of God and what Jesus stands for, not what I personally stand for. Short of me being fully aligned with God's will for my life,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. And then, of course, let's go back to the Old Testament today. I think you're going to like this. This feels like part of the Beatitudes. Sermon on the Mount,
Sure.
Matthew chapter 5. And Jesus says, these are the people who have God's favor. Blessed be, or blessed are, and are these. But this is from Psalm 41, but it sounds like something Jesus would say, okay? Mm-hmm. Blessed are those who have regard for the weak. The Lord delivers them in times of trouble.
Not
Doesn't
only
that-
sounds like Jesus, but it's very close to something Jesus said, yes.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say, I don't think Jesus would disagree with this statement from Psalm 41, verse 1.
He would keep that one.
He would keep that one. It's like, he could add that one in, right? He would not have a problem with that.
Yeah.
But think about this. God's favor rests on those who care about the weak. Now, intentionally vague. You can fill in the blank of who the weak are. It's not just one type of person. It's not just, blessed, who have regard for the weak. That's like, Jason, who's behind the camera today, feeling sorry for me because I don't have the weightlifting capacity that Jason has. Because in that
Yeah.
definition, I would be the weak, right? So, and you'd be the strong one back there. I
Weak
know.
and the strong.
Right? Yeah. But the weak could be any number of things. People who struggle for any reason. Folks who are weak in faith. Those who are unsure of themselves. Any number of things. And the psalmist says, God's favor rests on those who care, have regard for those who are weak, or those who struggle. But then there's a promise associated with that. The Lord delivers them, that is, those who have regard for the weak, God delivers them in times of trouble. So the promise is like, those who care, those who stand up, those who speak up, that when tough times come, God's going to be there. So in other words, that your heart is aligned with God's heart, therefore, in times of trouble, God's going to be there too.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty good news for a lot of us, and help us think about, what is it that God really cares about, and we hear it, right? And if we have a disdain or a hate or any number of things towards those on the outside, then maybe we need to have an attitude adjustment, right? Mm-hmm. To think about that. And of course that all ties back to Micah that we talked about this weekend, right?
Yeah.
Micah 6:8, what shall we do? What does the Lord require? To love mercy. That means to be merciful to those who are weak and struggling. To act justly, to do the right thing, and to walk humbly with God, right? Mm-hmm. So all of that comes together. So what do you think? Do you think that sells out in the world?
That'll do.
It'll do
It'll do.
here. It'll sell here at Community Lutheran Church.
Yeah.
So
yeah. No, very good.
Well, we're glad that you joined us today, and we hope that you are enjoying the one day that's going to be, let me see.
It might warm up again. I saw that.
It's 89 degrees right now.
So go outside and enjoy it.
So go outside and enjoy it. I went outside this morning at 7 a.m., and I was like, ooh, it's chilly.
Yeah.
And I
isn't
said,
that
oh, I
crazy?
better enjoy that.
Yeah, and it wasn't like sometimes it cools off, and then it's right when the smoke blows in from somewhere,
right,
and
right,
like
right.
it was just like it honestly seemed like a great morning.
Great morning. So it's 90 degrees. Be sure to step outside before the day ends because we
the
may.
next time you have 3:30 and it's not 100 and something.
Yeah,
it might
it'll
a
be
little bit.
December 15th.
Yeah, I know. Unfortunately.
It'll be October before you get it back again on a regular basis. But anyways, we hope you have a great rest of your day. Don't forget we got Bible study. If you want to watch us online tomorrow night at 6:00, we'll be online. And until then, we love you. Take care. God bless you, and we'll see you real soon. Oh yeah, Philip.